Some people can be the best at making their lives, and the lives of others in their lives difficult. In this video, we will talk about the best example of this phenomenon. Born in Ireland in 18,818, Marie Gilbert came to Paris in 1840 to become a dancer and actress, taking the name Lola Montez and claiming to be a Menko dancer. In 1845, her career was about to end, so she became a society prostitute to survive and became one of the most successful prostitutes in Paris. She needed to find someone who could save her career, and that someone was none other than Alexandre Dujarier, the theater critic and owner of France's most widely distributed newspaper, who first tried to woo her and steal her heart and mind. She investigated his habits and found out that he rode a horse every morning. As she was a very good horseback rider herself, she accidentally bumped into him, and they began to ride and spend time together every day. After a while, Lola moved into his apartment. At first, they were both happy, and with Dujarrier's help, she began to revive her dancing career. Despite risking his social standing, Dujarier told his friends he would marry her in the spring, but despite being deeply in love with her, his life was on a downward spiral. His business fortunes changed, and his influential friends began to avoid him. One night, he was invited to a party for the wealthiest people in Paris. Lola wanted to go, but Dujarier wouldn't let her go, and they had a big fight. Dujarier went to the party alone. He got very drunk at the party and insulted Jean-Baptiste Rosemont de Beauvalon, an important theater critic, because of a criticism he had made about Lola. The next morning, Beauvalon challenged him to a duel, and although Dujarier tried to apologize, the duel took place and he died. The life of one of the most promising young men of Parisian society was over. After this, Lola left Paris. In 1846, Lola found herself in Munich, trying to get Ludwig, King of Bavaria. She knew the best way to get to Ludwig was through his aide, Count Otto von Rechberg, and he had a weakness for beautiful women. One day, while the Count was having breakfast in a cafe, Lola rode by on her horse and threw herself on the ground right next to him. The Count rushed to her aid and, mesmerized, promised to introduce her to Ludwig. The Count arranged an audience, but when Lola came into the anteroom, she heard that the king had no time for a stranger asking for help. So Lola slipped past the guards and burst into the room, where the front of her dress had somehow ripped open, exposing her bare breasts under the astonished gaze of the king and the others. Lola meets Ludwig. 55 hours later, he made his debut on the Bavarian stage. The reviews were terrible, but that didn't stop Ludwig from booking more shows. Ludwig was, by his own admission, bewitched by Lola and began going out in public with her on his arm, then bought her an apartment in the most fashionable part of Munich, gave her gifts and wrote her poems, despite his reputation as a miser. Now her fortunes had turned overnight as the king's favorite mistress. Over time, Lola began to overstep her bounds. One day, she was riding a horse and an old man was riding in front of her. He was slower than she was, so she started whipping him with her riding whip. Another time, she took her dog for a walk without putting the leash on. And when the dog attacked a passerby, Lola whipped the man with the leash instead of helping him, and such incidents infuriated the people of Bavaria, but Ludwig stood by Lola and even naturalized her as a Bavarian citizen. The king's entourage warned him about the affair, but his critics were promptly fired. While the Bavarians who loved their king now openly disrespected him, Lola became involved in politics, giving political advice to Ludwig, and a new palace was built for her. What was once a place of peace was now on the brink of civil war, and students everywhere were singing Lola out. In February 1848, Ludwig could no longer stand the pressure of the problems, and, with great sadness, asked Lola to leave Bavaria immediately. Lola did so, but not without a price. Over the next 5 weeks, the anger of the Bavarians turned against their once beloved king. In March of that year, he was forced to abdicate. Lola Montez settled in England. She needed respect more than anything else, but Lola had a secret that she told no one. Lola was married. She had not left the Englishman she had married years before, and yet she had set her eyes on the promising young officer, George Trafford Heald, the son of an influential lawyer. And although he was 10 years younger than Lola, and could have chosen one of the most beautiful and wealthy girls in English society, Heald fell under Lola's spell. They were married in 1849. Lola was soon arrested for being married to two people at the same time, bailed out, and went to Spain. They fought terribly, and once Lola stabbed Heald with a knife. Eventually, she pushed Heald away. Heald returned to England to find that he had lost his position in the army. Ostracized from English society, he moved to Portugal and lived in poverty. A few months later, his short life ended in a boating accident. In 1853, Lola moved to California, where she met and married a man named Pat Hull. Their relationship was stormy, just like the others, and she left Hull for another man. Hull took up drinking and fell into a depression that lasted 4 years, and he died young. At 41, Lola gave up all her clothes and turned to God. She toured America lecturing on religious topics and died 2 years later. A few years later, the men who published Lola Montez's life story went bankrupt. As a channel, we took a big risk in telling you this story. As you can see, some people are really only interested in harming themselves and their surroundings. They are difficult to change and intervene with, and in such cases, staying away is the best option. There is a story that best summarizes this situation. One day, a scorpion who cannot swim wants to cross the river. He asks for help from the frog standing next to the river and asks him to take him on his back and carry him across. The frog refuses and says, "You will sting me and I will die." The scorpion then says that if I sting you, we will both drown, which makes sense to the frog, and he agrees. And when they are in the middle of the river, the scorpion stings the frog and they both drown and disappear in the currents of the river. If you take a scorpion in your hand, it will sting you no matter what you do, because that is its habit. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and see you in our other videos.